band of heavy rain makes its way northeastwards this morning. Windy there with a risk of gales for coastal areas. It's initially going to be dry for southeast England and London, though rain will move in from the southwest through this morning with some heavy bursts at times. Wet and windy for South Wales as heavy rain pushes across the country, drier for longer in the north and east. After a chilly start to the new week with some clear spells across the Midlands, rain will quickly spread in from the southwest with some heavy bursts at times, becoming increasingly breezy. A frosty start to Monday across northeast England with patches of fog or freezing fog in places. This may take some time to clear this morning, dry but cloudy as the fog lifts. It'll be a cold start, especially in eastern parts of Scotland, with a frost and fog patches. That fog slowly lifting this morning with a band of cloud and showers affecting eastern coasts. A wet morning across Northern Ireland with bursts of heavy rain that could cause travel disruption in some places, and a windy morning too, with a risk of gales for coastal areas. So rain will continue across southern and central England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and it will be drier further north with showers for eastern areas. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you on this Monday.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome. It is a Monday morning. It is 10 o'clock in the morning. This is Bev Turner today on GB News. We've got the whole week ahead of us. Somehow we've got to find reasons to be cheerful. And maybe for you, that's the football. England are playing Iran at 1 o'clock. Wales play America at 7 o'clock this evening. Of course, all under a cloud of political controversy. Talking of which, rumours abound that we are going to get back into bed with the EU through a so-called Swiss-style deal. I'm going to find out exactly what that would mean. And I'm launching my two-chart challenge where we will answer the biggest questions of our time. Today, Ivor Cummins takes on Dr. Michael Greger. Is a vegetarian or a meat-based diet healthier? A battle of facts that you won't want to miss. Plus papers with the panel. That's all coming up after the very latest news.
A very good morning. It's 1 minute past 10. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date. The Prime Minister is going to address business leaders today amid a backdrop of tax rises and spending cuts in the country. Rishi Sunak is expected to focus on innovation in his speech at the Confederation of British Industry conference in Birmingham. The CBI have asked the government to end arguments over Brexit and to use immigration to help grow the economy. Well, it follows Downing Street's denials that the government could pursue a Swiss-style relationship with the EU in a bid to see off a potential clash with Brexit-backing MPs. The Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, says that couldn't be further from the truth.
I don't know where that story came from, but it's completely untrue. We have no intention of pursuing that kind of arrangement. There are respectable arguments either way, but we have a settled position now as a country, and we reached an agreement with the European Union in 2019 and 2020, and we're moving forward on that basis. Of course, there are opportunities now to improve our trading relationship, as there are to improve our security and our immigration relationship with the European Union, but we're not interested in reopening the fundamental position that we reached with the EU a few years ago.
The Shadow Treasury Minister, Tulip Siddiq, claims the Brexit deal the government secured was completely wrong for our country.
What we really want to do is sort out the Northern Ireland Protocol and get a Brexit that really works for our country. Of course, we need some flexibility from the EU as well. Those were the 5 points that Keir Starmer set out for our Brexit deal, and it is not in accordance with what the Tories are doing.
In the last few minutes, England and Wales have announced they will not wear anti-discrimination armbands in their opening World Cup matches today. It's after FIFA threatened them with sporting sanctions. Well, Wales takes on United States in their first match tonight. It'll be the first time in 64 years that Wales plays in the World Cup. England will take on Iran this afternoon. Well, England's manager, Gareth Southgate, has confirmed his players will take the knee before their opening match. A 31-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of 2 young children in a fire in Nottingham. Let's find out more. We can go live to Clifton now to speak to our reporter, Will Hollis. A very good morning, Will. What more can you tell us?
Yes, well, really upsetting for the people that live in this Clifton community. There is still very much a large police presence here on Fair Isle Close. This is, of course, relating to a flat fire, a 2-bedroom flat fire here in Clifton. 3 people were taken to hospital, including 2 children. Sadly, the police announced yesterday that those 2 children, aged 1 and 3, did die in hospital. There remains a woman in hospital in a critical condition, but the latest that we've heard from the police, a 31-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. And while police are investigating, they're asking for respect so that they can go through the process of this, but they are also asking for CCTV and dashcam footage in what they're describing as a tragic incident.
Will Hollis on location for us there in Clifton. Thank you. Now, a woman who left the UK to join the so-called Islamic State when she was 15 years old will appeal the removal of her UK citizenship today. Shamama Begum fled her East London home for Syria more than 7 years ago. The Supreme Court ruled she wasn't allowed to come to the UK to fight her British citizenship case against the Home Office after it was revoked when she was found in a Syrian refugee camp. She's denied any involvement in terror activities. Human rights lawyer Hardeep Singh Banghal says Begum should be treated the same as a British citizen would be.
The issue is, if she's a British citizen, which she is because she holds a British passport, or she did hold a British passport, a British citizenship, then should she be treated like other British citizens, or should she be sent to a country where she's not born in, she hasn't lived in, just because the basis that her parents came from there?
Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood is in court today, charged with attempted rape. The 21-year-old's accused of assault, as well as controlling and coercive behaviour. All three charges relate to the same woman. He's been on bail since January, but was arrested last month for allegedly breaching conditions. 3 yellow weather warnings have been issued for parts of the UK today, with temperatures expected to drop as low as -4 degrees Celsius. The Met Office says ice will lead to difficult travelling conditions in Scotland. Heavy rain could cause flooding in Northern Ireland, while strong winds will affect southwest England and South Wales, causing disruption to travel. The alerts are in place until 6 o'clock today. You're up to date on GB News. I'll bring you more as it happens. Now, back to Bev.
Very good morning. Welcome to Bev Turner today on GB News, radio, TV and online. Yes, it's winter, but England and Wales kick off their World Cup campaign this afternoon. The players wanted to wear One Love armbands in support of gay rights, but they've now been told that they can't. They justified playing in a country that criminalises homosexuality as an opportunity to make such statements, didn't they? They are still going to take the knee beforehand in support of Black Lives Matter. And we've got a Twitter poll going to say whether you think that they should be wearing the armbands today. Plus, also, the Conservative MP Miriam Cates addressed the House of Commons last week, calling for more action to protect children from online pornography. It was a very powerful statement. We're going to be debating the very important online safety bill. We need to protect our kids, but at what cost to free speech? And today I'll be introducing my two-chart challenge. We'll be answering the biggest questions of our age with cold, hard facts. Today, is a vegetarian diet actually healthier than a meat-based one? With two mega brains who will battle it out. And I would love it if you could get involved with our Twitter poll, as I mentioned, at GB News. Should footballers be allowed to play in the One Love armbands at the World Cup? All your thoughts, please, gbviews@gbnews.uk. It is the first time that I've been back on air since the autumn statement, otherwise known as the Act of National Financial Self-Harm and Conservative Party Suicide on Thursday. And over the weekend, I watched incredulous as news presenters on lesser channels shook their heads at the budget and offered their poor viewers tips on getting a Christmas bargain or staying warm with hot water bottles instead of switching on the heating. These are the very same broadcasters who cheered on lockdowns as the infection fatality rate for the under-70s hit 0.1%, and the costs of furlough topped £70 billion. The same journalists who celebrated when the government took everyone out for dinner to the tune of £850 million, making jokes about Rishi getting the burgers in. I tweeted my thoughts about what can only be an absence of critical thinking or myopic stupidity on the part of these people. The response was so overwhelmingly in agreement that many of you out there must feel it too. We've been taken for a ride several times around the block, and we've got no way of arguing about the price on the meter. The highest public debt on record and the highest tax burden since the end of World War II. With Rishi and Hunt keen to wave their wallets on the global stage, our needs are seemingly of no interest to them. Small, hard-working, self-employed businesses, pubs, shops, those who pay themselves small dividends. Oh, they don't need saving, apparently. This was a socialist budget designed to help who? Not me, not you. I can't tell who benefits. Can you? Yesterday, COP27 leaders agreed to pay back compensation to developing nations whose climates are apparently changed by our pesky industrial progress. So yet another scenario in which several billions will be paid based purely on the notion that a disaster has been caused, we did it, the science is settled and cannot be questioned. We don't know the exact bill for that yet, but Rishi will presumably get out his COVID checkbook. You know, the one with the name Bottomless Pit on it, and will hand over whatever a poor country with dubious corrupt officials requests. And will any of those broadcasters who kowtowed to the politicians during the COVID scam have woken up yet? Will any of them ask them the bigger questions about what exactly is going on and why? Because like COVID, it makes no sense. Are this government parachuted in after the globalist coup of 10 Downing Street, making us poorer in order to build back better? And if so, can they let us know? Even better, come here and talk to me. GB News viewers know the questions that need answering, and I will happily ask them of you. So, Rishi, Jezza, you know where I am. So the Qatar World Cup kicked off yesterday. The Three Lions kick off their World Cup campaign today, facing Iran in their opening game at 1 p.m. Wales are going to play their first game this evening against America. It's their first World Cup game in 64 years. Exciting times for football fans, I presume. So let's go now to Qatar, where our reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Yeah, hot, I'll be honest, and as you can see, quite sweaty. You know, it's approaching 30 degrees here. We're in the Souk Waqif. It's like the market area in Doha. And look at the atmosphere. It's fantastic. And the breaking news, in case you haven't heard, is that the England and Wales teams will not wear those One Love armbands, so they won't face the threat of a yellow card. There are implications there because, of course, FIFA are effectively testing England and Wales as to how strongly they hold on to those principles, but they clearly don't want to take the risk of a yellow man. And it'll be really interesting to see, as soon as the media get to the England camp and the Wales camp, what the players and the managers make of that decision. But yeah, England taking on Iran at 4 o'clock, Wales against the USA much later this evening, 10 o'clock here in Doha when it's dark and much cooler. We've heard from England, Wales and Iranian fans this morning. Let's find out what these fans think. Let's go. I'm not even going to bother telling you where they're from. Guys, are you worried about the Welsh?
No, we're not worried.
Hang on, they got Gareth Bale.
Nah.
No?
We're good. We're going to win this 2-0.
All right, well, tell us, for those who don't know, and I don't know, tell us about the American team. How good are they, or bad are they, and who should we be looking out for?
A lot of good European talent coming in. Some Arena coming in, and Pulisic, of course.
Yeah.
USA!
Anyone else? Anyone else?
You got it?
No, I'm good.
We're good. I'll be honest, I'm more of a fake fan, but I'm here to
I appreciate your honesty. At least you're honest.
We're here to support our country.
There you go. Get her in there.
Yeah. And are you having a good time in Doha?
Yeah, having a good time. It's a blast. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and has the accommodation been okay? The hospitality been okay?
It's been awesome.
Have you been bothered that you can't have a drink?
Everything's good here.
Not at all.
No?
Yeah, not at all.
Okay. And you're facing Wales, then Iran. No, you're facing Wales, then England, and then Iran. England's going to be a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, England's going to be a definite huge game. Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard, but the news is that's just broken is that the England and Wales players were going to wear armbands in support of LGBTQ plus rights, and the FIFA would have given them a yellow card for that. They've now said they're not going to wear those armbands. I was just wondering what you think about that.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Do you think they should wear those armbands or not?
If they want to, go for it.
Yeah.
You're
not too fast. Okay. Just give us a quick rendition then of a song other than USA, USA, USA. Is there another song?
I believe that we will win. 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 I believe that we will win.
Okay, it's marginally better. At least there's more words in it. Thanks, guys. Thank you for speaking to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy the tournament. There you go. I've been pushing some of these fans on their songs, to be honest. Mexico and Ecuador. Fantastic, passionate, colourful, but their songs involve simply repeating the word Mexico over and over again and Ecuador over and over again. And I'll be honest, actually, I haven't heard many Wales and England fans singing, but I think they'll be in full voice once the match gets started, especially the Welsh fans.
Paul, there's something about Americans trying to talk about football which I just find so entertaining. You need to give them a lesson on the fact that we don't say 2-0. They need to say 2-0. You know, they've got to Europeanise themselves right into this, it's our game, not theirs.
Yeah, true, but soccer is in... I've just called it soccer, and I wasn't even thinking of saying soccer. I've just done it. Maybe that's a subliminal thing. But yeah, football, they didn't actually call it soccer, to be fair to them. Yeah, maybe we should start talking about 2-0. But yeah, hey, look, it's great. There's loads and loads of people from all across the world here. And it's not just the different people. It's the fact that, of course, because it's happening in an Islamic country for the first time, because it's happening in a country in the Middle East for the first time, a lot of the Arabs who are here, a lot of the Qataris who are here, they're still trying to get used to spontaneous chanting, spontaneous songs, people wearing lots of colourful clothes, like with fan and masks and that kind of stuff on. And I'm not saying they're watching in a bad way, they're just fascinated.
Curious.
Because this kind of thing doesn't normally happen. Yeah, it doesn't normally happen in this part of the world. So it's really interesting to watch. It's a really good atmosphere. And the other interesting thing to note is that there's obviously been a lot of talk about the fact there's no alcohol. This is a bit like a social experiment because football culture is synonymous with alcohol, and so taking the alcohol out of it is making for a really different kind of dynamic. The football fans that have come over, the English and the Welsh fans that we've talked to today have said it's very different to a normal England or Wales match. So there is less aggro, less tension, less anxiety, and people are more relaxed.
Paul, can you just clarify then, like where the fans can and can't drink? Because they changed the rules, didn't they, almost on the eve of the occasion as to where you could drink alcohol and where you couldn't.
Yeah, so at the moment you can only drink in designated fan zones, certain hotel bars, and those are pretty much the only places that you can go. Some Welsh fans we were speaking to earlier, they've paid around 80 quid for 5 pints and a curry at a special organised fan event. But as you say, FIFA changed the rules 2 days before the tournament and said you couldn't drink inside the stadiums. The truth is, they were only going to serve alcohol within the perimeter of the stadium and not the stadium itself. So there was a little bit of misreporting over that issue, and you wouldn't have been able to take the beer right into the stadium 15 minutes before the match anyway. I haven't spoken to one fan here who said it's really disappointing, we can't have a drink. They're kind of thinking, actually, the atmosphere's a little bit better, and to be honest, that's what we were expecting when we came out here, that we wouldn't be able to get hold of alcohol. So there's no real disappointment, if I'm honest. Yeah. And if anything, it's just making for a really interesting, different dynamic where football is normally related to alcohol.
Yeah. Paul, there have been some people saying how few women there are in the stands at the games yesterday. Is that something that you've noticed?
Well, I mean, we've only had one game so far, so it's a little bit difficult to judge, if I'm honest. We'd have to get more games involved. Let me just move this out of the way as this man in his buggy comes past. These are our bags. But yeah, we've only had one game, so it's difficult to judge, to be honest. I have to say, there seems to be, maybe there's slightly more men than women in the streets and on the Corniche, which is the waterfront area, and in the fan zones. But it's nothing really noticeable, and we'll be able to judge better when we see more games.
Yeah. And I mean, like the opening ceremony as well, of course, because we had the opening ceremony with a packed stadium, and then the game itself. There's a few people saying quite noticeable. Will the local women be allowed to go and watch the matches, Paul? Like you say, this is a cultural education for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, they can go and watch the matches. They're perfectly entitled to buy tickets as well. So, yeah, they can go to the matches as well. And as I say, there was a little bit of tension about the host culture adapting to this influx of people from around the world. And we saw that, for example, when we talk about how the media are the freedom to report, you saw that Danish crew that went viral. They were kind of slightly harassed by the Qatari authorities, but to be fair to the Qatari authorities, they did apologise for that. That Danish crew had the relevant permits and accreditation. Now, I haven't heard any instance of anyone not having the freedom to report. We certainly haven't experienced any sort of harassment. And so there was that initial period where the host culture has to adapt to the visitors that are coming into their country. That noise you can hear is the Tunisian fans. You all right, guys?
How are you? Fine.
Yeah, very good. You're from Tunisia?
Yes, of course.
Who are you playing in your first match?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, who?
Denmark.
Yeah. Tough game.
So easy. So easy, Denmark for me.
What are you talking about?
Big nation for football, Tunisia.
Yeah, I know.
Tunisia. Oh, معاك ربي ونبي. Oh, Tunisia.
I feel like I should explain to our radio radio listeners, what we're seeing here is some Tunisian fans hitting a massive drum, being very excited, even in the absence of much alcohol. It does bring out some strange characteristics in people football, doesn't it, Paul?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. You don't honestly need alcohol. What I will say is, for those of us that are used to having, not me, but for those of us that are used to having sinking 10 pints and then watching their team for the first time, they'll be able to watch them sober and really get to see their performance. Some may be quite disappointed watching how their own team plays now that they haven't got alcohol to kind of gloss it over for them.
So just for people who are just tuning in, we've got all this controversy around the armbands. The players announced that they wanted to play in these One Love armbands. In fact, a lot of them justified going to play in Qatar because they were going to use it as an opportunity to make a political statement. It's how they got around the judgment, actually, from outside. Now they've been told, Paul, that they won't be allowed to. 9 countries, including England's Harry Kane and Gareth Bale of Wales, had planned to wear them to promote diversity and inclusion. A joint statement from 7 football associations said they could not put their players in a position where they could face sporting sanctions. We're very frustrated by the FIFA decision, the statement has read. This is hot off the press, which we believe is unprecedented. Now, this is because if they played them, the sanction would... if they played wearing the bands, the sanction would have been a yellow card, am I right, at the beginning? And is it if you get so many yellow cards, you then basically can't play in a certain match? Have I got that right? They couldn't risk getting more yellow cards and then not being able to maybe play in a final?
That's absolutely correct. So initially it was just going to be a fine, which they would have copped quite easily. Then it became a yellow card. If you pick up 2 yellow cards, you're then banned for the next game. So if Harry Kane had gone ahead and worn this armband later, he would have got a yellow card. Then he would have worn the armband in the next game, and he would have got a yellow card in that game. And then he would have missed the 3rd game, which is the England-Wales match. We were talking to some Welsh supporters earlier, and they said, listen, we absolutely support inclusivity and LGBTQ plus rights, and we think Gareth Bale should wear the armband. And then I said, yeah, but if he gets a yellow card in that game, get in the first game against USA later, gets a yellow card in the next game, then misses the England game, should he wear the armband?
Yeah.
No, he shouldn't. It's not worth taking that risk. Clearly, this is that group of European countries are now at loggerheads with FIFA, and they can now question FIFA's inclusivity. FIFA talks about being against racism, all for inclusivity, about LGBTQ plus rights. The countries can now legitimately turn around and say, well, are you? Because now you're saying that if we wear an armband, we get a yellow card for it. So, you know, it's going to be fascinating to see what the players say when they're put in front of the media after the game. It could well be the first question that's asked straight after the England-Iran match later.
Yeah. And, of course, this is before we've even mentioned the fact, Paul, that England are playing Iran, a country which effectively has been supporting gender apartheid for a few decades now, currently have the most extraordinary political revolution. Rumours that there are 15,000 protesters who are fighting for women's rights in prisons in Iran, and also several that have been murdered, have lost their lives. There's a big question as to whether we should even be playing Iran in the first place, isn't it? Have you heard about this suggestion that when British or Iranian players get a goal, that they should celebrate by miming the holding up the hair and cutting the hair, which has been the statement of Iranian women? Do you think that's something that we're likely to see?
Possibly. I'd be surprised if we see it from the British players. I haven't heard that that's what they're going to do. But that is something that the Iranian players have been doing behind closed doors during Iranian domestic matches. So back in Iran, they've been playing behind closed doors because the government's worried about crowds, that congregation of people fomenting anti-government protests. So the matches have been played behind closed doors. The players haven't been celebrating the goals. Instead, they've been pointing to the sky, or as you say, mimicking cutting their hair. I think you could well see the Iranian players celebrating a goal in that way if they score. I don't know about the British players, but it is fascinating, the social issues and political subplots to this game, given you've got one side who wanted to wear armbands supporting LGBTQ plus people, and then you've got the other side who are we think going to demonstrate in certain ways about women's rights in their countries. It's almost like the football's taken a little bit of a backseat.
Do you know what's a bit sad, Paul, as well? I just think what is quite disheartening is that traditionally sport has been a way to bring people together, particularly football. You know, we often put aside our differences, and boy, do we need to put aside our differences in the world at the moment. We put aside our differences, and sport is meant to be a catalyst for bringing people together in celebration of something really quite pure. And as much as I feel these are all important issues in and of themselves, the more we talk about it, the more I'm wondering, and it'd be interesting for you whether you hear this from the fans, as whether it should become a completely apolitical environment again.
Yeah, some fans do think it's put. I see what the England fans we were talking to earlier. They were really unhappy with FIFA for putting the England players in that position in that position by sanctioning them with yellow cards instead of a fine. So there's never been a massive amount of love for FIFA. So it'll be interesting to see how the support for football's world governing body. What it's like after this. But yeah, football is absolutely an inclusive sport. Even if you're not bothered about football, you're not a football fan, it brings people together. There are people here that don't speak anyone else's languages and they just shout players' names at each other. People come up to you and go, England, Rooney, Beckham. That's why. And last night there was. We're in the Wakif suit. At the moment it's quite busy, but in the evenings this is packed. People are just kicking footballs around, doing keepy-ups with other people from other nations. You don't speak their language. You probably can't even say 3 words to them, but you can all kick a ball around together and it brings people together, absolutely.
Yeah. Do we have any idea what the temperature's going to be like there by the time England take to the pitch this afternoon? 4 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock our time. I can see you've got a bit of a dab on already there, Paul. You're wiping your top lip. What's it going to be like by 4 o'clock? Cooler?
Yeah, I know. I must apologise for my perspiration, but basically,
you're very manly, Paul. I quite like it. Don't worry.
It's going to be about 30 degrees. It's almost there now. It's going to be very, very, very hot when England play Iran later. You would have thought the Iranian players would probably be more acclimatised, although a lot of those players do play in Europe, so it could be equally tough for them. It's not going to be a fast-paced game. It's going to be quite slow and attritional. By the time Wales play, which is at 10 o'clock local time, it will be a little bit cooler, low 20s, 25 degrees, much more manageable for the Welsh. So it's going to be a really tough game for the England team later, given the heat that they'll be playing in, although, as we've been hearing, the stadiums are meant to be air-conditioned, so it's really going to put that air-conditioning to the test.
What do you mean the stadiums will be air-conditioning? Are they covered stadiums?
No, they're not covered. No, they're pumping cold air. They're kind of enclosed, but there is still a gap at the top, and then there's cold air pumped into the stadium to try and keep the ground temperature a little bit cooler. But yeah, it would have been in action when Qatar played Ecuador last night, but it was a nighttime game, so probably didn't make that much of a difference.
God, the irony, eh? Because I know that they built, didn't they? They built brand new stadiums. This is the most expensive World Cup in history. Am I right in thinking they didn't really have any stadium and they've built them all from scratch? About 7 stadia that they've built from scratch?
Yeah, there's 8 stadiums in total. Some of them were already there. It's slight misreporting that it's one of the most expensive World Cups in history, because if you include the infrastructure development, building roads, airport terminals, the metro system, brand new, that runs through Doha, then it does become one of the most expensive World Cups in history. But the Qataris have always been keen to stress that they were going to build that infrastructure anyway, and that having the World Cup just means they've had to spend a little bit more. So the actual spend, so some disagreement over the outlay and how you define that outlay. But certainly a lot of money's been spent in trying to make this World Cup logistically possible, given it's about the size, Qatar is about the size of East Anglia, and there's an extra 1 million people on top of 2.8 million people in this country, and also it's one of the shortest World Cups. There hasn't been a World Cup this short since 1978, so packing all those games and all those fans, the media that's reporting, as well as the people who live here, making sure Qatar can still function over that short period is a logistical challenge.
Yeah, it really is. Well, Paul Hawkins, there is nobody who has safer hands to talk the GB News viewers and listeners through the whole thing over the next few weeks. Thank you so much. Go and get some shade. Go and get a cold drink. Paul Hawkins there out in Doha. Right, after the break, we're going to be going through some of the biggest stories of the day with my fantastic panel. We're also waiting on Rishi Sunak. He's going to give a talk at the CBI conference any moment now. See you soon.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice, We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda. I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Good morning, 10:31. We'll be back with Beverly in just a moment. For now, I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date on GB News. Now, the Prime Minister is going to address business leaders very shortly amid a backdrop of tax rises and spending cuts in the country. Rishi Sunak's expected to focus on innovation in his speech at the Confederation of British Industry conference in Birmingham. The CBI have called on the government to end arguments over Brexit and to use immigration to help grow the economy. It comes, of course, just days after the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, unveiled £25 billion of tax rises in his autumn statement. Now, as the Prime Minister starts speaking, we'll bring it to you here. England and Wales will not wear the One Love anti-discrimination armbands in their opening World Cup matches today after FIFA threatened them with sporting sanctions. Wales will play United States in their first match tonight. It'll be the first time that Wales have played in 64 years. England will take on Iran this afternoon. Their manager, Gareth Southgate, has confirmed his players will take the knee before their opening match. Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood has been re-bailed after appearing in court, charged with attempted rape. The 21-year-old's accused of assault as well as controlling and coercive behaviour. All 3 charges relate to the same woman. A hearing will take place in February next year, with a trial date set for later in the year. A 31-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of 2 young children in a fire in Nottingham. Fire and rescue were called to a flat in Fair Isle, close to Clifton, in the early hours of yesterday morning. The children, aged 1 and 3, were treated at the scene for smoke inhalation, but later died in hospital. A woman in her 30s remains in a critical condition. You're up to date. We're on your TV, online and DAB plus radio. Now, let's head back to Bev.
Good morning, it's 10:33. This is Bev Turner today on GB News. Now let me introduce you to my panel this morning. I am very pleased to be joined by the man who should be on every single show on GB News, in my opinion, Liam Halligan, our business and economics editor. We have got Jo Wood here as well, television personality, businesswoman, freedom fighter, I would also add to that now, Jo, after the last 2 years. And also, I am very happy to say, Layla Ruas is here, the original footballer's wife. Do you hate that, Layla?
No, I love it, actually.
Do you?
So it's absolutely fine. Yeah, no. I love being the original footballer's wife.
Just to be clear, she wasn't married to a footballer, but she did play
Amy? No.
No, Amber.
Amber, sorry,
Amber,
nearly.
that's it.
Chardonnay and Amber. I loved Footballers' Wives. It was appointment viewing in my house. So we've got... You're kicking us off, Liam, aren't you, with the first
I like what you did there.
story of the morning. You're kicking us off. I'm sorry, that was not deliberate. I'd like to say I've got that much creative input. I don't. World Cup, football. Do you like football?
I love football, yeah. I played a lot of football in my life. Quite a fan. It's a strange World Cup, isn't it? I thought Paul Hawkins did really well there, reporting from Doha. It's obviously very, very hot. We're playing, or the English are playing Iran at 1 p.m. today. Wales are playing the US, of course, at 7 p.m. I just wanted to focus on Wales for a little bit because, of course, we tend to focus on England more just because it's a bigger nation. The last time Wales played in the World Cup was in 1958. And they got to the quarter-finals, they did really well, and they lost to the eventual winners, Brazil, but they only lost 1-0, and guess who scored the goal?
No idea.
Pelé.
Really?
A young Pelé. It's when Pelé really burst onto the scene in 1958 against the Welsh. And he actually complimented the Welsh team afterwards on how well they did. And, of course, you know, England will be the focus of most of the broadcast media over the next few weeks in the World Cup. But I'm not Welsh. Actually, I'm from an Irish background, as you know. The Republic of Ireland aren't there, Northern Ireland aren't there, the Scots aren't there. When I was growing up, it was always the Scots at the World Cup. In 1974 and 1978, I won't ask you if you remember that, Bev, because that would not be chivalrous, would it? but it's a shame that all the home nations aren't there, and indeed the Republic of Ireland aren't there. But at least the Welsh are there alongside the English, and I hope they do really, really well.
And we've got all this controversy, obviously, bubbling around all of this football. We've got a Twitter poll running, actually, asking for your input on whether you think the players should be wearing these One Love armbands. They've just been told that they can't, but should they? Joe, a lot of people justified going, right? The footballers said, we know it's a bit morally dubious, but we're going to go anyway because we're going to make a statement. And now they can't make that statement. Does it put them in an impossible position? Do you think, what would you do if you were them?
Well, I think when in Rome, do as the Romans do. And I think they should go by their rules of the country. I mean, FIFA must have paid such a lot of money to be paid from Qatar, such a lot of money. So I think they just have to, you know, go by the rules.
But, of course, the rules there are that it's illegal to be gay.
I know.
And now the players are saying, we want to make a statement about the fact that we support homosexual rights, and they've said, no, you can't do it.
Aren't they going to kneel, though?
But they're still going to kneel for Black Lives Matter. Yeah. Layla, what do you think?
Look, I think if it was in support of LGBTQ+, then go ahead and wear it and take the fine. If it's a protest against the human rights laws in Qatar, then what are you doing there in the first place? Boycott the World Cup. That's the way I see it, because, you know, the only way I can justify us being there is that we're not there, we're there, you know, not in spite of it, but because of the rights. So we're going to sort of put a spotlight on these human rights. But then we played in Russia in 2018, which are almost the same. You know, it's just...
We've had two Olympics. We had Beijing 2008 Summer Olympics. We had the Olympics, the Winter Olympics in China this year as well. Do you think, Liam, we should just make sport apolitical again? I kind of miss those days.
I think a lot of sports fans are going to look at this, and with the best will in the world, and of course everybody wants people's rights upheld, but a lot of sports fans are going to be thinking, crikey, I wish the middle-class chatterarties would just leave football alone. It's about the sport, and sport brings people together, whatever the politics. It's not just a case of a fine if Harry Kane wears this armband. He's going to get a yellow card every time he wears it, which means he'll actually, even if he gets no other yellow cards, because he'll accumulate 2 yellow cards in the games against Iran today and the Americans on Friday, then he'll miss the England-Wales game. I mean, you're actually messing with the sporting outcome. And, you know, obviously I wish Qatar was different. I've travelled in the Middle East a lot. But we've got to put this in context. I'm going to be absolutely slated for saying this, but it's just a fact. A lot of the rest of the world will be looking on at the West and thinking this is really hypocritical of the West. And, you know, let's just point out where we were. When England won the World Cup in 1966, homosexuality was illegal in the UK.
Yeah.
Of course that's changed. Of course it's for the better that it's changed. You know, I think very, very few people in the UK would say they don't want that, though some would, of course. But the vast majority of people wouldn't. And I think a lot of the rest of the world will look on this as sort of Western moralising, which is to take nothing away from, you know, the cause that it's espousing. I do have to, you know, finally, I'd say, for a lot of players who are slightly iffy about going to Qatar, I think the rows about the armbands sort of quell their conscience a little bit. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy here on both sides. It does seem to be resolved. Harry Kane won't be wearing the One Love armband. I think the England team will be wearing the sort of, you know, collective armbands that have been approved by the UN. Can we just get on with the football, please?
Yeah, I know.
Can we just watch the football?
So. I know. Layla, right, something again that may seem trivial, Twitter, but actually has a big impact in terms of communicating messages around the world. Elon Musk is now in charge. What's happened?
Well, 99% of the racist tweets that have come up in the last day or so have not been taken down. And we can sit here and blame Musk for it, but to be honest, like, as a brown Muslim female, I've had racist, Islamophobic tweets headed at me since, 10 years I think I've been on Twitter. So I've had it back then. I think Kamala Harris was, personally threatened and had racist tweets, and very little's done about it. I mean, you either, again, boycott and be quiet and just don't get involved, or, I just feel that there's not a lot of energy. People don't care enough about these racist tweets. It's not, and it shouldn't be this community where you can hide behind technology and abuse people. But how you deal with it, how do you sort of, I don't know.
Well, he obviously, Elon Musk went and asked Twitter whether Donald Trump should be allowed to have his account back. And there we go. So he said, should we reinstate former President Trump? And 51.8% of people said yes. No was 48.2%. But that had over 15 million votes. Now, Sadiq Khan came out, Joe, and said, this is disgusting. There's no way Trump should be on Twitter with that sort of mouthpiece. What do you think? Should he be there or not?
Yeah, I think he should be there. I think we have a choice whether you want to be, look at it and react to it. And I used to quite enjoy Trump's crazy tweets.
Yeah.
I used to think they were hysterical, that he had some nerve to... I mean, I found it entertaining.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's... but, it does harm people. Some people get really badly affected by what they read about themselves on Twitter.
Yeah.
And, as you said, they hide behind...
And anybody who's in the public eye or on Twitter, you have to have quite a thick skin, Liam, anyway, don't you, to even engage in that. But is it a triumph for free speech with Trump being back? I think it is.
Interesting that the Twitter poll was 52-48, pretty controversial.
Yeah.
voting split.
Figures we've got to know.
Just from a UK perspective. Look, whatever you think about Trump, the bloke was elected to be President of the United States. He still has an enormous voter base across the UK. Yes, he's not to the kind of chattering classes' taste. Some of them think a lot of his tweets are a bit near the bone, near the knuckle, and they are. But he was elected, and it's weird to throw him off a platform just because the kind of overwhelmingly Democrat-supporting big tech titans in their flip-flops and their T-shirts with their complex tax-dodging schemes don't actually like the guy. Of course he should be on Twitter. I'm slightly more reticent about Kanye West being back on Twitter, the US rapper star, because some of his tweets have been seriously...
He's gone a bit crazy, hasn't he?
Anti-Semitic.
Very anti-Semitic,
And so he's returned to Twitter with, the Hebrew word shalom, which many Jewish people will find completely provocative and even incendiary for him to use that word. I think a lot of people just use very, very controversial tweets, and possibly Trump to a degree as well, just because they know broadcasters like us will talk about them and it gets them in the public eye.
I'm going to have to interrupt us for now, guys, but you're not going anywhere this morning. We've got to cross live now to the Confederation of British Industry annual conference in Birmingham, where Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is speaking.
It is a valued institution in this country and a powerful voice for business.
Sorry, guys, we're waiting on...
And let me thank all of you, because I know things are tough right now. You rightly want to know what you can expect from me. You saw what mattered to me as Chancellor with policies like furlough, acting with empathy in the national interest. Above all, being bold, decisive, and radical. Now, let me tell you what I want to do as Prime Minister. I said on the steps of Downing Street that I would put stability and confidence at the heart of this government's agenda. And last week, we did that with a plan to grip inflation and balance the books. I said I would bring fairness and compassion to help the most vulnerable. And we've done that too, not just with record increases in pensions and welfare and help for people's energy bills, but by controlling inflation. Because the best way to help people is by stopping mortgages, rents, and food prices from spiraling out of control. Re-establishing stability is the critical first step. But there's so much more we need to do. I'm not just here to solve problems. I want to build a better country where we get inflation down and grow the economy, where we cut NHS waiting times and improve the quality of care, and where we invest more in schools and give every child a world-class education. And critical to achieving all this is innovation. That's my theme today, and a defining focus of this government. I sometimes worry that when people hear the word innovation, all they think of are the latest gadgets, a smarter watch, better TV, or faster car. But to me, innovation is much more about new ideas, new ways of doing things that drive economic and social progress. The product of creativity and ingenuity, and what Roosevelt called bold, persistent experimentation. I want to lead a country where that mindset and that culture of innovation permeates every aspect of what we do, where it's at the heart of our economic policy and at the heart of our vision for public services. The question is, how do we do that? First, we need to harness innovation to drive economic growth. Second, we need to embed innovation in our public services, especially our NHS. Third, we need to teach people the skills to become great innovators. First, growth. Now, Tony, you've rightly challenged us to be ambitious for growth. Well, there's one factor above all that drives growth. Over the last 50 years, innovation was responsible for around half of the UK's productivity increases. But the rate of increase has slowed significantly since the financial crisis. This difference explains almost all our productivity gap with the United States. So how do we fire up the innovation engine? Well, we believe that the very act of creativity and exploration is itself a reward. So it starts with government investment in basic science and research. In a challenging time, when we are making difficult decisions on public spending, in last week's autumn statement, we protected the budget for research and development. £20 billion, almost a fifth of our entire capital budget, the highest level of R&D this country has ever seen. And we're investing in high-risk, high-reward research with the new Advanced Research and Invention Agency. But more important than what government does is what you do. It's private sector innovations that really drive growth. Now, you'd expect me to say that. I'm a conservative, but it's true. And that's why the autumn statement cut taxes to encourage larger companies to do more research and development. It's why we want to allow businesses to claim R&D tax relief on pure maths and cloud computing. And it's why we're absolutely committed to using our new Brexit freedoms to create the most pro-innovation regulatory environment in the world, in sectors like life sciences, financial services, AI, and data. But any credible strategy also needs to support fast-growing businesses, those firms disproportionately responsible for our future growth, turning million-pound businesses into billion-pound businesses, and turning billion-pound businesses into 10 billion-pound companies. We'll create good, well-paid jobs for the British people. But too often, those firms can't access the finance they need. That's why we're radically reforming the regulation of our insurance and pension sectors, as well as our listing rules, to release a flood of new funding for exciting, innovative businesses. And we'll need to go further. But this isn't just about what large businesses and financial markets can do. We want to support small businesses to innovate too. On every high street, in every market town, every day, we rely on brilliant local businesses, from the greengrocer to the dry cleaner to the local plumber. We should be ambitious for their future too. The real prize is supporting them to innovate. And that's exactly what we're doing with new initiatives like Help to Grow and Made Smarter. So make no mistake, our most pressing task when it comes to growth is stability and controlling inflation. But that will never be the limit of our ambition. The more we innovate, the more we will grow, and we have a plan for both. Now, second, we also need to create a culture of innovation in our public services. Now, I grew up in an NHS family. It's in my blood. And as your Prime Minister, I will always protect an NHS free at the point of use. And that's why, in a budget where we had to make savings overall, we didn't cut the funding for health and social care, we increased it by £8 billion. So let no one ever doubt our commitment to the brilliant men and women who work in our NHS. But our ambition for our country's most important public service cannot be measured solely by the money we spend, but by the quality of care every patient receives. We all want it to be easier for people to see their family GP. We don't want our loved ones waiting so long for ambulances or for the operations they need. But better care requires innovation. Now, in part, that means new drugs and new technologies. And this country should be proud of how we are leading the way, not just with the extraordinary COVID vaccine, but with robots assisting surgery, doctors being trained with virtual reality headsets, and drones transporting prescription medicines to patients in remote locations. And medical technologies like these are only the most visible form of innovation. But we also need to radically innovate how we do things. That's how we'll really improve the quality and speed of care and make the money we invest in the NHS go further. To do that, we're opening community diagnostic centres to deliver millions more tests, checks and scans close to home and without having to arrange multiple appointments. And our new elective surgical hubs will offer hundreds of thousands of patients quicker access to the most common procedures. But we need to go further still. We want to give patients genuine choice about where and when to access care. And those choices need to be informed by radical transparency about the performance of our healthcare system. We're also making sure the NHS has the workforce it needs for the future, with the right number of doctors and nurses in the right places, as well as thinking creatively about what new roles and capabilities we need in the healthcare workforce of the future. When it comes to the NHS, we all share the same ambition: to give everybody in the country the best possible care, free at the point of use. But to deliver it, we need to be bold and radical in challenging conventional wisdom, and that's what we will do. Now, third, there can be no innovation unless people have the skills to innovate. That starts with our schools. So last week, we announced an extra £2 billion in each of the next 2 years. But funding is not enough. There is no responsibility as Prime Minister that I feel more deeply than how we develop a truly world-class education system, giving every child in our country the best chance of life and preparing them to enter a rapidly changing world. The Times were right to challenge us about what that looks like. And we are asking ourselves radical, searching questions about the curriculum, because young people need to enter the modern economy equipped with the right knowledge and skills, and about technology, because we want to help children engage and learn better and save teachers time. We also need to end once and for all this mistaken idea that learning is something you finish at 18. So we will also deliver our lifetime skills guarantee to help people of any age retrain and acquire new skills. I believe in the very core of my being that education is the closest thing we have to a silver bullet in public policy. It is the most transformative thing that we can do for our people, something you as employers know all too well. And I am determined to get this right. But to make this country a true island of innovation, we also need to attract the best and the brightest from around the world. So we will unapologetically create one of the world's most attractive visa regimes for entrepreneurs and highly skilled people. And one of the areas we need to be most ambitious is AI, artificial intelligence. Because this isn't just a new technology. It's a general purpose technology, like the invention of the steam engine and the computer chip, with the potential to transform every aspect of our lives. So we cannot allow the world's top AI talent to be drawn to America or China. That's why, building on the AI scholarships and master's conversion courses I instigated as Chancellor, we are launching a new program to identify and attract the world's top 100 young talents on AI. Less build it and they will come, and more let them come and they will build it. But we must be honest with ourselves. Part of the reason we ended the free movement of labour was to rebuild public consent in our immigration system. If we're going to have a system that allows businesses to access the best and brightest from around the world, we need to do more to give the British people trust and confidence that the system works and is fair. That means tackling illegal migration, and that's what I am determined to do. So to conclude, innovation matters. It matters because it creates more jobs, higher wages, and better opportunities for people. It matters because it improves our schools and NHS. And over the long term, by boosting growth and creating more productive public services, innovation is how we will cut taxes for people and businesses. That's why I'm placing innovation at the heart of my governing agenda. And despite the challenges we face, I'm optimistic about the future. Because the golden thread of our national story has always been innovation. The idea that what's yet to be discovered is surely even greater than all that's come before. I want the United Kingdom to be a place of learning, discovery, and imagination, of potential realised and ambition fulfilled. That's how we'll improve the lives of all our people. And as your Prime Minister, That's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
OK, if you're just joining us, that was Rishi Sunak there, who is addressing the Confederation of British Industry annual conference. I think he's going to take some questions from the floor.
I think we're going to take some questions from the media. Should we start with the BBC?
Thank you, Prime Minister. Simon Jack, BBC News. We know that chronic labour shortages and weak post-Brexit trade are holding economic growth back. You heard this morning businesses are saying we need looser immigration rules and close ties with our biggest market, the EU. Are you listening to them?
Well, I think the country's #1 priority right now when it comes to migration is tackling illegal migration. It's stopping people coming here illegally on small boats across the Channel. Because when people see that happening, it undermines trust in the system. It doesn't seem fair that people are able to break the rules. And that's what I'm absolutely determined to fix. Now, I want to be honest, it's not a simple problem to solve. We can't solve it overnight. But I am determined to reduce the number of illegal migrants coming here. We've started making progress on that. My conversations with President Macron enabled us to conclude a new deal with the French to help us better police the Channel, put more people working together with the French in France. But there's more work that we need to do, and the country should be reassured that I will tackle this as one of my highest priorities. And if we're doing that, then I do believe that we can, that it's right to ensure that the United Kingdom is a beacon for the world's best and brightest from around the world. You heard me talk about that in the speech. I want to make sure that we can win the global race for talent. And I'm unapologetic about wanting to deliver an immigration system which is highly competitive for the best and the brightest. And that's what we'll deliver. But I think the most pressing priority right now is tackling illegal migration. And that's what I'm determined to fix. Next, ITV.
Hi, Prime Minister. Harry Horton from ITV News. We've heard the director of the CBI say that there is a shortage of workers at the moment and we need a new deal on immigration. Last Friday, your Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, he said he wants to see the vast majority of trade barriers with the EU removed. How are you going to change our relationship with the EU on legal immigration and on trade in order to boost growth, as so many businesses at this conference say they want to see?
Well, thank you. I think on migration, I'd point back to what I've just said, Harry. But on trade, let me be unequivocal about this. Under my leadership, the United Kingdom will not pursue any relationship with Europe that relies on alignment with EU laws. Now, I voted for Brexit. I believe in Brexit. And I know that Brexit can deliver, and is already delivering, enormous benefits and opportunities for the country. Migration being an immediate one, where we have proper control of our borders and are able to have a conversation with the country about the type of migration that we want and need. Right? We weren't able to do that inside the European Union. At least now we are in control of it. When it comes to trade, it means that we can open up our country to the world's fastest growing markets. I've just got back from the G20 in Indonesia. We're talking about signing CPTPP, where we've got some of the most exciting, fastest growing economies in the world, and we can become a part of that trading bloc. That's a fantastic opportunity for the UK. Or indeed regulation. And you've talked, and Tony's talked about growth. You've heard me talk about innovation. Well, we need regulatory regimes that are fit for the future, that ensure that this country can be leaders in those industries that are going to create the jobs and the growth of the future. And having the regulatory freedom to do that is an important opportunity of Brexit. And that's my agenda, and I'm confident that that agenda is not only right for the country, but can deliver enormous benefit for people up and down the UK in the years to come. Next, The Times.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Alex Ralph from The Times. Given the rise in corporation tax next year, will you commit to increasing investment allowances such as the super deduction scheme, which the likes of the CBI and other business leaders want?
Well, Alex, I completely agree about the importance of unlocking private investment. It's one of the things that's held our country back over the past few decades. And if we want to be serious about driving up growth, then we need to unlock more private investment, not just in R&D that I talked about in my speech, but also in capital. It's something I've spoken about in the past. So that's why I was so pleased that the Chancellor, in spite of the difficult decisions that needed to be made, was able to make permanent the annual investment allowance. Now, that at a very high level of £1 million. Now, what does that mean? That's essentially full expensing for 99% of British businesses. There's nothing like that I think exists in almost any other advanced economy. It makes it incredibly easy and tax efficient for companies to invest in new equipment, new machinery, new plant that can drive up our growth, drive up our productivity. And that's why it was right that the Chancellor did that. But it's also right that we continue to look at that and see that we do everything we can, whether it's through the tax system or otherwise, to support all of you to keep making investment in the future growth of our country. And next, Bloomberg.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Lizzie Burden, Bloomberg. Over and over, we hear critical voices coming from the business community about the Conservative government's performance. Are you still prepared to say explicitly that the Conservatives are the party of business?
Lizzie, thank you. Yes, unequivocally. Unequivocally, and you heard it in my speech. It's important that government creates the conditions for stability, for making sure that we tackle inflation. But that's just the foundation. Now, all of us collectively need to build on that foundation. And what my role is, what the government's role is to ensure that we can unlock all of the things that we want you to do and what you all want to do, whether that's investing more in new machinery and equipment and automation, whether it's investing in R&D to create the products and services of the future, right? Expanding into new markets. Ultimately, it's business that creates the wealth, the jobs that this country needs. It's not government that does that. And I think you've seen from my track record as Chancellor that I stood by all of you. I stood by business because I knew how important it was to our country. I knew how important it was to safeguarding people's jobs and their livelihoods. And that's my track record as your Chancellor. And you can rest assured that as your Prime Minister, I will continue to build on that legacy and ensure that we make this country one of the most exciting, dynamic places for businesses, small and large, anywhere in the world. That's my ambition. That's what I want to deliver for you. And I think we made a very good start on that last week. But there's lots more that we can do.
Thanks, Prime Minister. We are going to have a few business questions. I've stolen the first one. I'm really sorry. I was praising your May's lecture earlier this year. And in it, you talked about the UK not having a competitive tax regime compared to our competitors on innovation, skills, and capital allowances. Thanks for stealing that question, Alex. Tell me, do you think we now have that competitive regime for incentivising skills, innovation, and investment, or is there more to do?
Well, those are exactly the right three areas to focus on, and thank you for your kind words about the May's lecture, Tony. But I talked about capital, people, and ideas, and I think many of you think about your businesses in a similar way. And it's right that our tax regime, but also our regulatory regime, supports all of you in delivering in those three areas. So we're definitely making progress. As we just talked about the AIA, full expensing for 98, 99% of UK businesses, £1 million, permanent. Nothing like that exists anywhere else as far as we can tell. Enormous support for the vast majority of businesses in this country to invest more. I think that is not just competitive, it's probably the most competitive tax regime for investment you can find. You talked about R&D. The Chancellor increased the research and development expenditure credit, the tax relief for large company R&D, significantly in the autumn statement, because, as you know, innovation drives future growth and productivity. But it's not enough just to increase the rate. We want to make sure that our tax regime keeps up with the way that all of you actually conduct research. And what we'd heard from life sciences companies, that there's more investment in cloud computing, in data, to do drug discovery. That wasn't covered by our regime. So we now want to make sure that our regime does cover that. Again, it's something that the vast majority of other countries haven't done yet. So I think it gives you the confidence you need in all of you that we take this seriously and we'll keep delivering it. But there's always more to do, right? This budget, or this autumn statement, there was a first step. The precondition is stability and tackling inflation. But we didn't stop there even last week. We started to deliver on a longer-term ambition to make sure that this is, as I said, the most attractive place for all of you to invest in capital and people and ideas anywhere in the world. And I'm highly confident that we can deliver that.
And that's a powerful message for everybody. Now we have
Right, that was Rishi Sunak at the CBI annual conference in Birmingham. With Liam Halligan, what can only be described as a sort of libidinous thrill at the idea of innovation rescuing us from all of our woes. I don't think the British public feel like that.
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed at what I just watched. We've just had an autumn statement that raised the tax burden in this country to the highest since the Second World War. We just had an autumn statement that raised corporation tax on many small and medium-sized firms too, the firms that generate the growth and jobs that run the British economy. And it's gone up from 19% to 25%.
Yeah.
Taking 6% off the margins of small and medium-sized enterprises. There are some exemptions that have been hammered during lockdown. And I'm amazed that not in the speech or from any of the journalists' questions, no one asked about why are you raising taxes so much when the economy is already in recession and you're going to drive the economy even more into recession, which will make the fiscal situation even worse. It's the most basic question in economics, and they're wanging on about Europe and innovation.
This is the thing, we had two questions there. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, you watch GB News, because we watch these sorts of occasions with a very different ear and a very different eye, because we had the BBC there asking, you know, business here want looser immigration rules and we want to go back in the EU. And ITV had a similar question. We're all sitting here going, that's not what's concerning us. Is it, Joe? What were you thinking when you were watching that?
Well, I don't like him. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just
don't apologise. You're here for your opinion.
He's too connected to the WEF for my liking. And I just think all this innovation he's talking about is they're pushing us towards a digital ID, and you can tell what he's saying.
It's not really hiding in plain sight anymore. And just to explain what I think, what you mean, Joe, when you say that is he's connected to the WEF, it's the idea that there is a globalist movement of which Rishi Sunak is no doubt in lockstep with a lot of people who have ambitions to make us one big planet with one big government and potentially one big army. I don't know where it ends really, and the idea that technology is going to make take such a big place in our life that it will control us. Layla, that's kind of how we're feeling.
It's so frightening, but to be completely honest with you, Beverly, I absolutely detest the man. So whenever he comes on, I either switch off, and I know it's really bad practice, but I switch off the TV or I just completely switch off because I just can't bear his policies, what he stands for. He's just not my cup of tea. So I try really not to engage in it because it does make me really angry. And there's not much that I feel that I can do about this. That's the most frustrating thing.
You're so right. That's the problem, Liam, isn't it? Because you mentioned greengrocers there, how important greengrocers are. Well, how is your obsession with artificial intelligence and technology going to help the average
What does he even know about the common man? This is what what does he know about the common man out there that's just trying to make a living?
This is a shame, I think, for Rishi Sunak and for the country, because I do think, you know, he's got the makings of being a decent Prime Minister. I do think his story is a pretty incredible story. He's not from huge amounts of money. Obviously, he's massively wealthy now. But it is a sort of, you know, a British dream story. His parents came here, they worked hard, they sent their kids to a great school. And he's obviously a very, very bright guy. So I had...
But he's weak.
Yeah, I had high hopes for him. But I'm really disappointed that he seems to have just imbibed this kind of, you know, orthodox view of how we run things, particularly how we run the economy. Now, certain people will be screaming at the television saying, oh, but the mini-budget crashed and burned and all the rest of it. Look, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are being vilified for policies that were more right than wrong. Yes, the bond market went nuts. In my view, that was more to do with what the Bank of England was doing at the time and the fact that the presentation and timing of their policies was all wrong and they didn't explain them and they should have included the Office for Budget Responsibility and all the rest of it. But the lesson from Truss and Kwarteng is to take the markets with you and explain what you're doing and maybe go more steadily rather than trying to upend everything at once. The lesson isn't to junk the whole idea of economic growth, to raise the tax burden so high that many, squeezed middle of ordinary families now are worried, even more worried than they were this time last week about making ends meet.
According to Rishi Sunak, it's all going to be fine because we're going to spend billions on innovation and technology and artificial intelligence. Do you know what that means to you? It does seem otherworldly. It's completely unconnected. Right, get in touch with, tell me what you think, won't you? GBviews at gbnews.uk. World Cup campaign starts today. England are facing Iran in the opening game at 1 o'clock. Wales and England have also announced they are not going to wear these pro-homosexual rights armbands. Should we say that? One Love in their opening World Cup matches today. FIFA threatened them with sporting sanctions. Was this the right call? Let's go live to our national reporter Theo Chikomba, who is outside a fan zone in Birmingham. Is the atmosphere picking up there, Theo? Are people going to be taking a bit of a longer lunch break today, do you think, to come down there and watch the match? We have not got Theo's audio, unfortunately. Right, we're going to go to Jeff Moody. Jeff Moody is our GB News South West of England reporter. Jeff, let's see if we can hear you this morning. Where are you? What is the atmosphere like as we build up to this first controversial game?
Well, I've switched sides. I'm now supporting Wales, and I've come to Treorchy, to the Lion pub, where it's a big deal. They're getting ready for a wonderful evening. Let's bring in the assistant manager, Sam. Hello to you, Sam.
Hello.
This is a big deal for Wales, isn't it?
Yes, this is the first game that we played for this Euros. First time in 64 years, and we are super excited. We've got around 200 people coming in tonight just to watch the first game, and then obviously as it goes on and on, hopefully we win, and it should get busier and busier as it goes on, which is super exciting.
You're not a football fan yourself?
No, I'm more of a rugby sort of fan.
I guess that when you called them the Euros. I guess you might not be a football fan.
Yeah, no, rugby is my thing. I love the rugby and so.
But how important do you think it is for the Welsh to be in the World Cup after 64 years of watching on the sideline?
It is lovely to see, like all the crowds that come in here, you can see like the passion they've got. If we score and they start screaming, and it's a really good atmosphere to be around, and it is really nice to see the community come together and be sort of one cheering on Wales.
And to be proud to be Welsh.
Yes, it is very good to be proud today. We are very proud of each other.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you enjoy the tennis.
Thank you.
And I'm going to be here throughout the day talking to people as we gear up to the big match tonight. Now back to you.
Jeff, I was just thinking, well, not only does it look absolutely lovely in the pub there, and you're making me just want to go and spend tonight watching football, even though I'm not that bothered about football, just so I can be in a pub. But it was just occurring to me, and I was watching you there, this is actually just what the hospitality industry needs at the moment, isn't it? We need people to be going out, buying a pint, buying a plate of chips, whatever it is, and supporting these industries as well, these businesses.
Oh, absolutely. So many people have stayed away from the hospitality industry right from the beginning of COVID. A lot of people still nervous about coming out in big crowds. So an event like this really should get people out of their houses on a very wet and windy day to come down and to mix with other people and to cheer their country on.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. Enjoy your day. We will probably speak to you tomorrow to see how it went. We're going to see if we can speak to Theo now. Theo Chikomba is... Hello, Theo. You are there outside a fans zone in Birmingham. What happens in a fan zone?
Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me now. We had a small issue of technical difficulty, but we are inside Luna Springs here in Birmingham, and they're expecting hundreds of fans here. Fortunately, we are inside, not outside, because the weather is terrible this morning. But you can probably see over my right shoulder, people are here already. You are asking, are people taking the day off today? And yes, it does look like they are today. It's around 11 o'clock this morning, and already nearly 100 people here, just in front of me and behind me as well. Atmosphere is going to be lively here this afternoon, expecting a couple hundred people for the England and Iran game. In terms of football itself, England are ranked 5th and Iran are 20th in the world. So it's going to be an interesting match. World rankings aside, anything can happen. It's a World Cup, and lots of people will be buzzing for it here today.
OK, thank you so much, Theo. Down there, no doubt will be enjoying a fantastic occasion at 1 o'clock, regardless of how you feel about the politics. Thank you, Theo. A lot of you have been getting in touch to let me know what you think. James has said focus on performance on the field, not politics. Nicola says the players should focus on their job, which is to play football. I'm pleased to hear the announcement. This is that they're not allowed to wear these One Love armbands. And John says, I'm not a football fan, Bev. I'm not in favour of the armband or bending the knee. Why don't the players just get on and play the game? A lot of you agreeing with that from now on we should be focusing on the football and they should be letting the politics just fall away to one side for the next couple of weeks. Let me know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We've got a panel. The panel will be back in just a moment. We've got a Twitter poll going as well, don't forget, asking whether the players should be wearing these armbands. If these views are anything to go by, I imagine you'll probably say no, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be getting involved in it at all. Should players be allowed to play while wearing the One Love armband? That is our Twitter poll. Let me know what you think. We've got plenty more to come after the break. The panel will talk us through some of their favourite stories today, and I will see you in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good morning, it's 11:22, Monday morning. You are watching and listening to Bev Turner today on GB News. Let me reintroduce my panel to you this morning, because we took that rather long break to hear our Prime Minister talking about the things that get him excited in terms of fixing the economy. I'm pleased to be joined this morning. Liam Halligan is here, Joe Wood is here, and Layla Ruas are also here. Now, First story we're going to be talking about is Shamima Begum. OK, this is a name that is a household name, of course. She ran away to join ISIS. She was 15 years old. It was 2015. Can you believe it's that long ago? She was in Syria. She married one of the terror group's fighters. She found out she was pregnant in a detention centre in 2019. Her citizenship was revoked. She's back in court now. She's appealing over the removal of her UK citizenship for joining the Islamic State. Let me come to you, Layla. How do you think this girl should be treated now by the British
I think
authorities?
it's absolutely vile the way that we've treated her. She was a baby. I mean, my daughter's 15, and you know, sex trafficking, human trafficking. We can't fight for these things, and then when it happens in our own territory, we're responsible for her.
Yeah.
We can't just fob her off to Syria, to Afghanistan, or to wherever we want to. We created her. And whether she's a monster or not, we've created it and we need to take responsibility for her.
If you remember, there was the three of them that were taken out at the time, Khadija Sultana, Amira Abbas. They are both believed to have lost their lives over in Syria.
Oh,
Jo, what's your take on this?
I think they say that she was being... Shamima was being groomed for 2 years before. So when she was 13, how can a young girl have any, if she's being groomed, have any say? It's just so sad. I think we ought to really see what sort of state mentally she's in now, and see if she's really has been radicalised or not.
Well, she lost 3 children. She's given birth to
Poor
and
girl.
lost 3 children. I mean, she's not going to be, let's face it, Liam, she's not going to be that stable emotionally, one might say. She very much wants to come home. Do you think we should let her? There's often she's become a symbol, hasn't she? Her story's taken on. She's become a symbol of whether we are a soft touch when it comes to allowing people to live in this country who do not have our best interests at heart.
Yeah, she's also become a symbol of are we being naive when it comes to the extent to which young people are being radicalised online, particularly young people from Asian backgrounds who may have sympathy with certain sort of geopolitical outlooks. It's incredible that she was only 13 when she was groomed. She was only 15 when she left to go to Syria. I mean, where's she going to go if she's not a British citizen? She's of Pakistani heritage, but she was born in the UK. Yeah. She grew up in the UK. And the extent to which she is radicalised, I think, does speak very badly towards the UK. We've turned a blind eye to the extent of online radicalisation.
Can you be de-radicalised?
Look, I come from a Muslim background, and I was living in India. I came back in 2000 when it was really rampant, the whole kind of radicalising young male and females. And there are so many kids that were, that 17, 18, that had no sort of stance in life, had no hope, and that's who they targeted. I would say 80-90% of those have completely moved away from that, are living normal lives, are paying their taxes,
but you know
doing what they have to do.
Even though as the father of daughters, I have a lot of compassion towards a young woman being misled by older men who haven't got her best interests in part and actually want to use her as some kind of slave and have obviously harmed her in many ways. On the other hand, right, there are parts of the UK where there is a lot of radicalisation going on. I think there are parts of the UK where local laws seem to be Sharia laws by certain populations. I think we shouldn't have no-go areas in the UK. I think British law should apply everywhere.
Yeah,
if you're in the UK.
That should apply to the UK.
And I think moderate Muslims have to speak out more about this.
But why should we speak out more? It's you don't speak out about everything that, I don't know what background anything that Ireland does. Why is it for me to speak out about
You'll
these
find
things?
the Irish community in Britain, of which I'm a proud member, spoke out a lot about IRA terrorism at the time.
Yes, but not everybody does it. I'm saying it's not down to us to make a speech about
Okay, let me put it like this. I don't think being culturally oversensitive should stop us and our law enforcement authorities and indeed our community more broadly from calling out where there is radicalisation going on openly in this country. I mean, we're overwhelmingly, broadly a successful multicultural nation, despite the problems that we have, and obviously we have problems. It'd be naive to say that we don't. But multiculturalism can only be sustained and have consent if more radical elements are called out. And the danger here is that in showing compassion towards Shamima Begum, we may be seen to be going soft on radicalisation of our young people that's going on in person in the UK and somehow. You've got to be naive not to talk about that. It's an everywhere problem.
I think what we probably all agree on is that there is a radicalisation problem in this country which the authorities have not been strong enough on clamping down. I think we need to be really careful that people don't jump onto this girl who no doubt did a terrible thing, but was 15 when she left. And I remember in 2015 thinking, well, she's adult enough to go, she's adult enough. She knows
not
then
15.
Guess what I had? Then I had a 15-year-old. And then I realised that 15-year-olds think they know everything and they know absolutely nothing, and she was still...
Who was groomed from the age of 13.
So I think we have to be... I think it's OK. I think we can support Shamima Begum being brought back here, possibly used to help us understand how this happens, right? Use her for some good. Cooperate with her, collaborate, work out how that happened. You can still think that it's not OK to live in a country in which people are allowed to be radicalised while still welcoming her back to the country. Welcoming is possibly a little exaggeration, but allowing her back. Right, let's move on. This is a story, Layla, which caught your eye, isn't it? This is about the head teacher. She's the head teacher of the Lady Eleanor Hollis School in West London, Heather Hanbury, and she's been saying that we need to have more female qualities in the workplace. I wonder what she means by that.
Well, what she says is you're a better leader with those female qualities, which is like empathy, patience, etc. But that's stuff we've known all along anyway. I mean,
I wouldn't know how to be
anything
male, leader. I'm a woman, so how can she... That's so weird. That's so weird.
Well, I suppose what she's saying is, and I do like, what she's saying is, let us celebrate our difference. I'm all right with that, Liam. Let us acknowledge that women, stereotypically, absolutely, but we have different qualities in the workplace than maybe
I also
men have.
think that what she's saying is that we don't have to we don't have to man up in order to get ahead. We can be who we are without having to...
So you have to mimic women. You have to be a bit more girly, Liam Halligan.
Playing my natural role, as they say on the football field. Don't man up, but act like a woman, says Heather Hanbury of Lady Eleanor Hollis School in West London. I think what she's saying is that, smart women, they can get ahead, they can do whatever they want. And clearly we do need more female representation. This country, again, actually does pretty well in terms of our politics, the number of our MPs. We've had 3 female prime ministers. I'm sure there'll be many, many more in our collective lifetimes. But I think what she's also saying is that women have to put themselves forward as well, because they have got qualities like empathy, like reasoning and so on. I mean, look, let's be clear. They also have downsides. If we're going to do a stereotype of women are more empathetic and men aren't empathetic, well, let's do the stereotype of women can be really catty towards each other and not... Well, they can. Twitter explodes.
Ladies,
so
catty are we?
I don't mind doing stereotypes as long as it works both ways. And of course, in my life experience, of course, women in business are more empathetic and they are more likely to seek compromises, and they've got better soft skills. Absolutely, they have. But the stereotypes work both ways. Men also have quite a lot of those things.
I agree.
A lot of business, though.
Thank God for that.
But the workplace is often... It is still... The workplace is predominantly very male.
It is.
There's some terrible statistics about the FTSE 100, aren't there, about how few female members are on the board.
It is. On the other hand, and again, I take my life into my hands of saying this, while there are lots of women who want to run companies and be CEOs and be on board members, there are a lot of women who don't.
Yeah.
And there's a whole generation of women, some of whom, they want to have their kids and they want to take on a more traditional role, and they don't want to talk about it to their friends or on the media because they think they'll be insulted.
There's also a lot of blokes who don't want to do a lot of parenting, so the women often find they don't have a choice but to stay at home.
Bravo.
But my generation of men are unrecognisably different from their fathers,
True.
right?
The next
Unrecognisably
generation will be more
different.
so- You're so right. You're so right. Right, I enjoyed that chat, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, just let you
You
off
gotta have that one. You gotta have that one, Liam.
Stab me later.
Right, I'm going to be asking in just a moment, what diet is factually better for you? A vegetarian or a meat-based one? This conversation always sparks a debate. We're going to be getting stuck into it after your morning headlines with Rosie.
Good morning, it's 11:33. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date on GB News. The Prime Minister says re-establishing stability is the critical first step as he sets out plans to stabilise the UK economy. Addressing business leaders at the Confederation of British Industry conference, Rishi Sunak said he was placing innovation at the heart of his government agenda. He told delegates controlling inflation was critical to improving living standards and to putting the economy on a stable footing for the future.
I'm not just here to solve problems. I want to build a better country where we get inflation down and grow the economy, where we cut NHS waiting times and improve the quality of care, and where we invest more in schools and give every child a world-class education.
Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood has been re-bailed after appearing in court, charged with attempted rape. The 21-year-old's accused of assault as well as controlling and coercive behaviour. All three charges relate to the same woman. A hearing will take place in February next year, with a trial date set for later in the year. A 31-year-old man's been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of two young children in a fire in Nottingham. Emergency services were called to a flat in Farehall Close in Clifton in the early hours of yesterday morning. The children, aged 1 and 3, were treated at the scene for smoke inhalation, but later died in hospital. A woman in her 30s remains in a critical condition. Nottinghamshire Police says it'll do all it can to get justice.
The mother, a 28-year-old female, is in a critical condition, and our prayers are with her at this time. Detectives are working around the clock, working very diligently to try and piece together this inquiry, and I'm pleased to confirm that an arrest has been made. Those inquiries will not stop because detectives will keep an open mind, and we will turn every single stone to make sure that this family get justice. I'd like to reassure the local community that we will have eye visibility patrols in the area, and hopefully that will offer reassurance. And if anybody has any information, please come forward on our 101 number to the force control room. Even if you think it's not worthy, then it is important to us so we can either confirm, deny or chase those inquiries. So for me, just to offer reassurance to the community, this matter is being dealt with at the highest of levels, and we'll do everything we can to get justice for this family.
We're on your TV, online and DAB+ radio. It's GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events. And I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Co.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Good morning. You are watching and listening to Bev Turner today on GB News. You've been sending in your views to me about the World Cup. We were asking whether you think that the players should be so kind of politically engaged. They're still going to take the knee for Black Lives Matter before the match. They're playing Iran. Obviously, that's controversial because of the uprising there at the moment. And it's in Qatar. Nigel has said it was definitely a mistake to give Qatar the World Cup. Having said that, have we forgotten that not so long ago, LGBT was also illegal in the West? This is what Liam Halligan mentioned earlier. Time moves on, hopefully so will Qatar. Chris says we all agree that racism and homophobia should always be tackled. However, I think that taking of knees, rainbow laces, wearing of armbands achieves very little. If these sportsmen and women really believed in what they espouse, then they wouldn't be in Qatar. Oh, you're harsh, you lot, aren't you? Keep your views coming. And of course, we've got that Twitter poll going on as well at the moment to say whether you do support the players making political statements or not. Right, now, a new segment here on Bev Turner today. Now, it's a debate that always sparks nice kind of attitudes about what we should all be doing, because this section is a two-chart challenge. This is where I'm going to get two experts and they're going to answer the big issues of our time, not from an emotional point of view, but purely from a factual point of view. And the question today is, what diet is actually healthier? Is it a vegetarian or a meat-based diet? And so I am delighted to say that I'm joined now by Ivor Cummings, a metabolic researcher and co-author of Eat Rich, Live Long, and Dr. Michael Greger, physician and founder of the non-profit nutritionfacts.org. Gentlemen, good to see you, and thank you for joining me on the two-chart challenge. We believe in free speech and good, healthy, rigorous debates here on GB News. Ivor, I'm going to start with you. Tell me, why is a meat-based diet healthier for the human body?
Right, thanks a lot, Bev. Well, I'll just say something first. My views reflect the views of my enormous network of professors, doctors in metabolic and nutrition science. So it's not just me. So the reality is that a meat-based diet is nutrient dense. And the proteins in meats and animal foods are way more bioavailable, right, to humans. Part of it is our evolution came from eating meat. So to get a decent protein, and 40% of Americans in a recent study are not reaching the target. That target's been raised, so it's worse than that. And the bioavailability of proteins is around a half to a third often of animal foods. So we have a huge problem, developing world, a massive problem. Almost none of them are getting their required protein and vitamins. And animal foods are the solution, even acknowledged by the WHO, though not pushed very hard. It's acknowledged that meat, fish and eggs and nutrient-dense foods are required for the anemia and the protein deficiencies across the whole planet. So a vegetarian diet is doable. And I have many vegetarian friends, and Joel Kahn, a vegan cardiologist who's quite famous, good pal. However, he acknowledges you need to get your supplements and you need to be very careful with a diet that's missing animal foods. And he acknowledges that.
Thank you, Ivor. Dr. Michael Greger. Ivor Cummings has friends who are vegetarians. He even has some friends who are vegan, but they're not as healthy as him, are they?
Unfortunately, look, the number one killer of British men and women is heart disease. There's only one diet ever proven to reverse the progression of heart disease. That's a plant-based vegetarian diet. If that's all a plant-based diet can do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, or reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming. People aren't dying of deficiency diseases. When's the last time you heard of someone having protein deficiency, beriberi, pellagra, scurvy? No, people are dying of excess, of diseases of excess saturated fat and cholesterol. The healthiest diet is one centered around whole plant foods.
Ivor, you might look good, but inside your heart is not doing so well as a burgerholic.
Well, burgers are okay if there's no wheat kind of put into them, if they're just real meat. But I think Dr. Gregor there is referring to the Ornish study. And I have many good cardiologist friends, including Dr. Arthur Agatston, who invented the Agatston score. And basically, those studies are dismissed. They're based on grainy kind of images. They're not really solid science at all. So it's been demonstrated by Professor Jeff Volek and many others in human studies that a low-carb, high-fat, animal-based, largely diet can dramatically lower blood fats in diabetic people. And I'll just show something on the screen, if I could be at liberty to do so. And it's in reverse, unfortunately, but you'll see the blue line collapsing and the pink line rising up to the right over 40 years. Yeah. And essentially that's the reduction in red meat consumption over the last 40 years and the explosion of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, which drives most heart disease. So to be honest, this isn't rocket science. We've lowered our nutrient density meats and we've exploded our chronic disease, including, as per Dr. Gregor, the cardiac disease, the biggest killer. It's insulin resistance driven, and a whole foods, animal-based diet with plant foods can help counter this catastrophe.
Go on then, Michael. That's a very convincing chart that Ivor Cummings brought to the occasion. Do you have a chart that can beat that?
My chart was all the diseases that are lower rates in vegetarians. And so beyond the heart disease, there's low rates of cancer and dementia. And in fact, I ran out of space. There's also lower gout, on and on. Dr. Dean Ornish, the heart disease reversal study, was published in the most prestigious medical journal in the world, The Lancet, out of Great Britain. I feel like I'm talking to a flat earther here, but it's even worse than that. I mean, if you want to go around talking about like lizard people or something, you can just get dismissed as a crank. But what you're spewing could actually hurt people, could kill people.
But Michael, your chart was rubbish. It wasn't even a chart. It was just a load of words written down on a piece of paper in a green felt tip pen. Ivor's going on the science, isn't he?
Lots of things have changed over the last few decades. That's what's called ecological evidence. It's the lowest rung of evidence. The fact that, you know, overall population consumption has gone up or down versus disease rates. What we want are interventional studies, randomized, controlled studies where you can actually prove you can reverse the leading killers of Britons with a healthy diet, and that is a diet centered around plant foods, reducing one's intake of meat, eggs, dairy, and junk.
Ivor Cummings, last word to you.
Okay, the Ornish diet is a decades-old study based on a handful of people, and it's been ripped apart left, right, and centre. I won't even give it dignity, but I'll just show one more thing. University of Washington, a full review, and basically red meat is not a health risk. So it was anti-science and junk science that said it was. The reality is now full review, and we've known this for 10 years. Red meat is nutrient dense, healthy. Eggs are a superfood. You should have a balanced omnivore diet with high nutrient density, and the science now is clear as day. The red meat kind of scam saying it's unhealthy was absurd. We evolved via access to nutrient dense meats. No paleoanthropologist worth their salt would question that. It's a reality.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for kicking off the two-chart challenge. I will let our viewers get in touch with me and decide who they thought was right, all in good spirits of debate. Thank you both so much. Ivor Cummings there and Dr. Michael Gregor. Let me know what you think. Do you think a vegetarian diet is always healthier than a meat-based one? And also, did I mention that there's a World Cup on? From World in Motion to Sweet Caroline, no World Cup is complete without a proper soundtrack to get fans into the football spirit. And in East Yorkshire, a new anthem has been recorded with hopes that it will become the unofficial soundtrack to England's tournament. Anna Riley has the story.
We're gonna have to watch it on TV, because Qatar is way too hot for me. We're English, you know, we're used to the snow. We'll get back to a crisp, that's why we won't go. Potato.
Move over Vindaloo and Three Lions. Half a Pound of Spuds by the Tight Tops is the newest World Cup anthem to be released. The video was masterminded by East Yorkshire footy fan Gavin Wynne, and it was shot in and around his hometown of Leven. And he has high hopes for its success.
The song's basically a light-hearted football song. A lot of these new football songs and the old ones tend to be very laddish. So we thought we'd create something a little bit more light-hearted, a bit more family, less oi, more potato. We was originally going through what kind of thing, like an English dish. Vindaloo's been done, obviously. So we was thinking chips, and we didn't work, nothing rhymed with it, so I was like, potato stuck from there. So we got Bodger and Badger involved, because he's a massive mashed potato fan. Everyone's kind of like that. It's a little bit surreal and a bit random. We've got a Gary Lineker doppelganger in there as well. Badgers, sunburnt Scousers. It's a complete mishmash.
Many local cast and crew were involved in the production, with the new inn featuring prominently.
It's been really exciting. It's created a real buzz about the place. It's really put Leven on the map, and it's been just such good fun, really, to have it here.
And aside from whether or not his World Cup anthem will become a chart topper, Gavin has high hopes for England's chances.
I think England have got a really good choice. A good chance, sorry. I think they've got the best chance they've had for quite a long time. But who knows? It's a funny old game.
So come on, England. And as Gavin would sing, potato, potato. Anna Riley, GB News, Leven.
Oh, right. Thank you for staying with us. It is a Monday morning. We've been looking at the World Cup. We've been looking at what Rishi had to say at the CBI conference. There's a story which also caught our eye this morning about working on the moon. We're all a bit sick of this country right now, aren't we? I think that seems like a blooming brilliant idea, Liam Halligan. Would you like to go and work on the moon?
Well, the Cold War's back, so everyone's talking about space travel again, aren't they? This is a story about Howard Hu. He's the head of the US agency's Orion lunar spacecraft program. And the Artemis rocket, as we speak, it's 98 metres long. It's currently heading for the moon. It's going within 60 miles of the moon. It's not actually landing.
Right.
It's designed for people, but it hasn't got people in it. It's got 3 kind of stuffed dummies, like crash test...
This is a test drive, really.
test dummies. And it's going to travel 1.3 million miles on this round trip and take 25 days before crashing back into the Pacific. And when it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, I love this stuff, when it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it's going to be going 25,000 miles an hour.
Oh,
crikey! And the temperature on its heat shield as it re-enters the atmosphere is expected, when it splashes down off the coast of San Diego, it's expected to be 2,800 degrees centigrade.
So that's in the next 10 years. They say that people are going to be working on the moon.
Yeah, working for how many days? 25? No.
It'd be like the Jetsons.
2 months.
Do you remember the
By
Jetsons?
2030, apparently, we could be able to live on the moon for lengthy periods, according to this NASA official.
Like the clangers.
Your mate Howard Hu. Yeah. Apparently, when this Artemis rocket took off with it's a historic day for human space flight.
Even though there's no humans in it.
Not bothered. And then we're all going to apparently be living on the moon.
I said 2 months. So it's like a holiday home, really, isn't it? You go off for the summer. There's nothing there
to do.
But it's fascinating, though. It's still fascinating.
Well, I think you have to be very worried. I reckon aliens are on the moon.
You're a big alien fan, aren't you, Jess?
Yes, huge.
Didn't you have an encounter?
Yes, I saw a UFO in Brazil. Proper UFO.
Had drink been taken?
No. No, definitely. Everybody always asks me that.
No, I'm really fascinated with this.
What did you see?
My ex-husband said, Joe, get out here, come and see something weird in the sky. And it was about 11 o'clock at night.
Was this Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones?
Yeah.
He hadn't been drinking or imbibing any...
most probably had been drinking. So I came, because we were packing, we were leaving the next day, had the kids and everything. And I went out and I saw this craft with lights coming down onto the sea, without a doubt. And I stood there and Ronnie ran in to get his glasses. And as I watched it, it lifted up, went to the right and then shot across the sky at a speed I'd never seen.
Wow.
And I stood there and went, oh, my God, I've just seen a UFO. It was so real.
Yeah.
And you've never had anybody from that part of the world be able to explain it in geographical?
No, so the next day, we get on the plane to go back to Sao Paulo, and we pick up the paper, and it said, UFO invaders Brasilia. And hundreds of people had seen the same thing. So I knew I wasn't mad, you know. And
it was never explained.
And since then, I've been completely obsessed.
You host a podcast about it, don't you, where you interview people about their stories of extraterrestrial
and
life.
lots of people that I've interviewed have said there are definitely aliens on the moon.
We are not alone.
On the moon, so on the moon as well. Yes. So presumably, if these guys are up there, they're going to find out.
One of the astronauts said something like, they're watching us, or we're not alone, you know, years ago. So, I mean, why wouldn't they be there? There might be some sort of treasure there, that gold or silver.
We've come so far, though. It's not so far...
I have nothing.
It's not so far-fetched. Obviously, there's space tourism now. The big question for me is whether or not the state should be paying for space travel, or if we should leave it to the sort of tech giants and the billionaires.
Well, let's leave it to the billionaires.
Yeah, leave it to the billionaires. It's a billionaire sort of playground, isn't it? I mean, I'm not expecting.
It's becoming a real. The space race, though, it's expanding. We got rockets taking off from Newquay in Cornwall quite soon.
Well, I think they're going to monetise it, though, aren't they? It's going to become, I don't know.
Cornwall's not a vertical rocket. It's spacecraft that are strapped to conventional airlines. But yeah, the UK's got a space programme. Obviously, India's got a space programme. China's got a space programme.
Let's just touch upon this story, guys, before we go. We're getting to the end of the show. This is a play that David Tennant is in, and he plays the lead role. It's Cecil Philip Taylor's. The play is called Good in the West End, and he plays a good German man who's basically become seduced by Nazism. Now, audience members have been told that, well, they've been given little stickers when they arrive at the theatre to put over the cameras of their phones so they don't take a photograph of him in a Nazi uniform.
Oh, come on.
Layla, as an actress, do you find this story a bit baffling, that they don't want a photograph of the Nazi?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand it, but I just think it's... you know, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, look, there's these racial stereotypes in theatre and in film. They've been... I mean, I've experienced them. I've said no to a lot of work because of them. And until and unless you take a stance, you know, you look at Aladdin and these, you know, you just sit there and think, oh, come on. You know, the whole thing has to change. I think there was a play that was taken down somewhere in the UK.
Well, this is the Aladdin panto.
Yeah.
There's a Christmas panto that has been hit by this as well. It's in the village of Anstey, wherever that is. It's the Dorset, corner of Dorset. And they're playing Aladdin, and it's being cancelled because apparently the Chinese laundrette workers being chopped up and wishy-washy. They said it was cultural stereotypes and they've just cancelled the whole thing. And apparently there's loads of kids have learnt their scripts and everything. We've run out of time.
They just changed the name of them, Wishy-Washy and Chop Chop.
Apparently, but it's too much cultural stereotyping. We can't even begin to unravel all of that in the 2 seconds I've got left on the show. Thank you so much, Layla, Joe and Liam, for keeping me company today. We're asking on the Twitter poll whether the British players, I'm going to call them that, English and Welsh players, should be wearing the One Love armband. The final results are in. 31% of you said yes, they should be allowed to wear the armband, and 69% of you say no, they should not be allowed to wear them. Right, I will be back tomorrow morning. Coming up next is GB Newsday with Mark Longhurst. In fact, I'm going to see you this evening because I'm sitting in for Michelle today doing Jeeves & Co from 6. But if I don't see you then, I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. It's been a soaking wet start for many of us, and that heavy rain is moving northeastwards through the rest of the day. Showers following and a very strong wind arriving into the southwest after the rain clears to showers. Low pressure, a couple of low pressures in charge actually, and it's this low that's pushing the rain through and also developing some tightening isobars there towards the southwest, so some strengthening winds. The risk of coastal gales, 55 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts, perhaps even more for exposed parts of Cornwall, along with some lively showers. The wind, though, helping to push the rain through, so it does brighten up for the southwest, the rain pushing into Northern Ireland, North Wales, central and eastern parts of England. To the north of that, some sunshine, but also a few showers. Feeling cold in the north, 6 or 7 degrees, and also feeling cold cold, where we've got the band of rain, 6 to 8 Celsius. Now, the rain continues across Northern Ireland through the day, and that's why there's some sensitivities here with the wet weather we've had recently and a rain warning in force. But eventually overnight, showery conditions replace the persistent wet weather. Again, we've got that strong wind in the southwest, frequent showers here, and the showers of a wintry nature across parts of the Northern Isles, so some sleet and snow, especially over higher parts. Now, the rain and snow showers in the far north that tend to affect the north and the east of Scotland as we go into Tuesday, and there'll also be further showers towards the southwest, but in between a cold and frosty start in places, some fog patches, but actually plenty of fine weather around for Tuesday afternoon. Sunny spells, a much brighter day certainly for Northern Ireland, for Wales, into the Midlands. And as we head into Tuesday evening, any showers around coastal areas, they'll continue for a time before eventually easing. But it's increasingly wet and windy for the Northern Isles, and again that's rain falling as snow over the higher ground. Now the rest of the week stays very changeable with further spells of rain and showers and a strong wind.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.